The best-selling software for personal computers is a spreadsheet. Now, a spreadsheet is a program which takes all the tedium out of repetitive calculations and recalculations. And it's the kind of thing which really comes into its own in a small business. Now, suppose that I work for Microlife Builders Limited and a customer wants an extension. I've got to give an estimate based on materials bought and the labour employed. Well, I'm going to need bricks, mortar of course, a couple of windows because that's what he's asked for, and the right amount of glass. Now obviously that's not every item involved in building an extension, but it's enough to explain the problems involved. Now all those materials are going to cost money, based of course on the quantities used. So multiply the number of bricks by the cost of a brick and you would get this sum here. But as well as the costs of the materials, there's the labour. There's 6 days of the brickies for the bricklaying. Then there's 3 days for the brickies labourers to mix the mortar, carry the hods and so on. 1 day here for a carpenter to put in those windows. And probably just half a day for our glazier. Now each of those people is going to cost money, which we've shown here. And all that money must be added up to give us the total cost of the job. Here it is. Now, it stands to reason this is not the amount I'm going to charge the customer. I'm in business, so I add my percentage profit. And then I present the estimate. Well, so far so good. But one of the worst things you can do to a builder, so I'm told, is change the specification. Now, suppose that my customer decides he wants a third window. Well, here we go. But the effect on the final estimate is far from straightforward. First of all, this extra window will cost more. And of course, it will need more glass. There it is. And the glass will cost more. But it will also need more time from the glazier to fit it. And that's going to cost more. There he is. Extra bit of glazier's time and extra wages. Oh, but of course, where there's now a window, there will now be no wall. And that's going to mean fewer bricks. There they go. And that'll cost less. And it'll also mean less mortar. And of course, that'll cost less. And of course, it'll need less time from the workers and so on, and that will cost less. So now, our original estimate is no good at all. Changing one number over there has affected almost every other number. So now, well, I just have to do all those calculations all over again and draw up a new estimate. But that's the sort of thing that a spreadsheet copes very well with. This is Lotus 123, set up to look like that example. Now here we've got columns for the materials, the costs, the labour and the wages. And they've been itemised for the bricks, mortar, windows and glass. Here's the total cost and here's the amount for the estimate, £1,393. Now notice that here we've only allowed for 2 windows, but just watch what happens, particularly to this final cost here, when I change the number of windows to 3. Enter 3. And they're all recalculated instantaneously, and the new cost is ready straight away. There it is, £1,489. Now that happens because there are rules which relate those numbers one to another. So, for example, the cost of the windows in this box here is the number of windows times the cost of each. And the amount of glass you need, that's what we show here, also depends obviously on the number of windows. Now, I put those rules in when I set up the spreadsheet, and you can see the rule for each box in this corner here. So box B9, that's B9, the amount of glass, is defined as box B8, it is B8, number of windows, times 2. So that's the number of windows, B8, times the amount of glass for each. Now, we've taken each window as being 2 square metres. Right, let's move over to another one, C9. C9, the total cost of the glass, is B9, that's the amount of glass needed, times £12. That's the cost per square metre. And similarly, there are other rules for every box on the grid. Now, things can change. Supposing, for example, the rate for the glazier goes up from £50 a day, which I've allowed here, well, I simply change that rule. And the spreadsheet can get bigger. Supposing I want to be a bit more realistic and include the cost of plastering the walls. Well, that will need a new row, and a sensible place will be up here, just under those items for the walls, perhaps under the mortar. So I'll insert a row for the plaster. There we go. Insert row. Oh, by the way, this system uses a software add-on called HAL, which allows me to make all kinds of changes like this very simply. Insert row, enter that, and it does so straight away. That doesn't upset the system. The software is smart enough to adjust all those box numbers automatically. Right, there's a new row there, and I'll call it plaster. Enter that, and now I need a rule for how much plaster. Well, I'll just make one up. Suppose the number of cubic meters of plaster just happens to be the number of bricks divided by 8,000. It's got to depend on the area after all. So, right, number of bricks, that's what we've got in box B6. So I enter plus B6. The plus means a formula is on the way, divided by 8,000. There we are. I put in the formula, but watch what happens here. A number goes in. It's done the calculation immediately. And similarly, I can fill in all those other blanks. Now, this is a fairly small spreadsheet, but you could work with a spreadsheet which was hundreds of boxes in each direction, and then it would be absolutely indispensable. So to sum up, a spreadsheet is simply a series of rows and columns filled with numbers. Many of those numbers are related to each other by rules. So changing one number will automatically change all the other numbers that are related to it. To use the forbidden cliché, it's a very powerful piece of software.
Very expensive piece of software too, isn't it?
Yes, I'm afraid it is. The 123 is about £250, and if you want HAL, that's about another £130.
And you have to run it on a business computer with enough memory to cope with it. But it is possible to run inexpensive spreadsheets on smaller computers. This BBC Master series comes with a built-in spreadsheet called ViewSheet. And this Spectrum is running something called Mini Office, and this only costs about £6. Well, use one of these and you could stay one step ahead of your builder and tell him what the cost of the job is going to be.